Just like dog shit at an off-leash park is all but unavoidable, so too in the world of whiskey is the snob. Here are 4 things that a snob is going to tell you that you can just completely ignore. Welcome to Oak and Age. My name is Alan, and as I sip today on a nice bourbon, we're going to talk a little bit about snobs. Look, we've all been snobby about this or that before, and I think it's just part of human nature. When you dive really deep or you're really passionate about something, you can't help but be a little bit snobby. And it's not so much that they're annoying. My problem with snobs is that they can say things that have an influence on people's minds, and they might actually create a negative bias in the mind of someone who's new to whiskey or inexperienced with whiskey, and that can create problems down the road. That can create negative bias, that can really taint a new whiskey drinker's perspective on what the whole world of whiskeys has to offer. So today I want to look at 4 things that a whiskey snob might say that you can completely ignore. The first thing is that whole argument that a higher age statement or a high price point automatically means it's a better whiskey. You hear this a lot, and I'm lumping these two together because the simple reality is the older the whiskey, generally speaking, the higher the price, and so they kind of go hand in hand. But is that true? Is a more expensive whiskey a better one? Well, right off the bat, we can debunk this, because what is better? Better to me might not be the same as better to you. It's all subjective. Here's the thing about a price point of a whiskey. Value is generally a factor of that product's rarity or availability. The simple reality is that older whiskey costs more, and that's because there's less of it. And there's several reasons for that. One of which is that when a distiller creates their product, they want to be able to sell it. And if they've got a barrel collecting dust on a shelf for 12 to 18 years, that's 12 to 18 years in which they're making no money on the time and the effort that went into distilling that product. They're making no money on the mortgage that they're paying to keep that cask somewhere. It's just expensive to create whiskey and to house it. And then you can compound that by something called the angel's share. Now, angel's share is a term for the loss of product as it evaporates out of a barrel. The longer a whiskey sits in a barrel in some warehouse collecting dust, the more evaporation takes place year over year. And so when that distiller finally cracks open an 18-year-old cask, there's a lot missing, and so that's a lot of potential profit they've lost on that barrel, versus if they had just cracked it open at 8 years, there would be more inside. And so in order to recoup their losses, they have to charge more for it. And because they're not letting so many barrels age into those higher age statements, there's fewer barrels to pull from, which means, of course, there's a rarity factor too. And both of those things drive up the cost of that whiskey. But does it make it taste any better? Again, that is down to you as the individual, or whether or not you like the taste of an older whiskey. There are some whiskeys that are really old and they've been in a barrel for too long. They've got a lot of oak tannins, and that overrides any of the vanilla flavors, any of the caramel flavors. Better is just subjective, and the price point isn't necessarily indicative of that. Number 2, don't add water or ice to your whiskey. Now look, full disclosure, I was pretty guilty of this when I was first getting into whiskey. And it's a really common thing you hear from a lot of people. And what it comes down to basically is personal preference. I tend to prefer my whiskey the way it comes out of the bottle. But that's not to say the whiskey gets any better or any worse if you add water. It simply becomes a different thing. It tastes different. Sometimes adding a drop of water or 2 opens it up, makes it smell more floral, or gives it a little bit less astringency on the palate, and maybe that change in flavor you perceive as being better, whereas someone else might perceive that as being worse. So there is really no right or wrong here. It's all a factor of whether or not you like your whiskey that way. I have a saying, your dram is your dram. If what is in your glass is the way you like to drink it, you're doing it right, and everyone else can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. Adding water to whiskey is not going to ruin it, especially if it's just a drop or two. It's going to change the flavor. It's going to change how you nose the glass. It's going to change the alcohol volume. And all of those changes may actually have a dramatic impact on how much you enjoy the whiskey. And maybe it's an improvement, maybe it's less of an improvement. Every whiskey is different as well, so you never know. I mean, it could be a smart idea to add a drop or two, especially to a higher proof whiskey, to see what happens. With a lower proof whiskey, maybe not so much, but again, your dram is your dram. All right, the third thing on our list that snobs say that you can just outright ignore. Blended whiskey is inferior to single malts. Now this one pertains more to Scotch whiskey, and it's easy to see on the surface why this idea persists. I mean, you go to a liquor store and you're in the Scotch section, and guess what's on the bottom shelf there with the screw caps, lowest price, and all of these bottles always say blended Scotch whiskey. They're dirt cheap, and the assumption is they taste like dirt. But if you are closed-minded to all blended whiskeys, you're gonna miss out on some really magical things, such as Compass Box, and all the witchcraft they do to make their whiskeys taste incredible. And a bottle like this. This is Pete Reekers. This is a blended Isla whiskey. This is a fantastic bottle. It's got a completely unique flavor profile, and I love it. They don't have their own distillery, so what they do is they employ a master blender to go around and sample barrels from other people's distilleries. They're in search of a specific flavor combination or a flavor profile. They combine them, and if it passes whatever standards they've got, then they package it up, they bottle it, and they sell it as a blend. And that doesn't mean it's any worse or any better than anything else. It just means it's different. They are sourcing their whiskeys instead of distilling it.
Blended whiskey is inferior to a single malt.
Anyone who holds that opinion is forgetting one very important fact. Even your single malt whiskey is technically blended together from different barrels within that warehouse, or different warehouses that are owned by the same distillery. Whether it's Connemara or Macallan, they're all doing that. They're all sourcing barrels from their warehouses, blending them together to create something that tastes consistent, that the consumers know and like. All of your whiskey is basically blended together from something unless otherwise noted. These two bottles of Knob Creek are both single barrel. Oh, this is not the sakes. Unless your bottle says single barrel or single cask like these two, then it's pretty likely that whatever you're drinking is a combination of many different barrels that have been blended together by the master blender at that distillery. Each barrel is unique in flavor. These two Knob Creek single barrel expressions taste completely different. They're both Knob Creek, they're both aged 9 years, they're both 120 proof, but one of them tastes drastically different than the other, and that's because every barrel is different. All of your whiskey is basically blended together from something unless otherwise noted. All right, the fourth and final thing you'll hear whiskey snobs say that you can completely ignore: anything that comes out of a screw top is no good. Listen, all I'm gonna say to that is you should never judge a bottle by its cover. And I'm gonna give you two very strong examples that, if you're a subscriber, are going to be familiar to you. In my left hand here is the Heg Club. This is an $80 bottle. It is a Scotch whiskey, and it has some of the nicest packaging I think I've ever seen. And that is a cork, a beautiful cork. It sounds amazing, it looks amazing. I don't really like the taste of it though. This, on the other hand, this is J.P. Weiser's Triple Barrel Rye. I know, I keep coming back to it, and that's because it's cheap and it's delicious, and it has a screw-off cap. Now, if you're shopping for what you perceive to be a better whiskey, you're probably gonna look at this Heg Club with its fantastic packaging and think, that's the one, that's the better whiskey. But for my money, this will always be the better whiskey, this J.P. Weiser's Triple Barrel Rye. It just tastes better. And I don't care that it comes in a screw top. I don't care that it's cheap. I don't care that it's kind of a bottom shelf whiskey, because the fact is, it tastes good to me. And that's all that matters. Some other really good examples of fantastic whiskey on the market that generally speaking, most people in the whiskey community love. Jameson Irish Whiskey, screw cap. Maker's Mark, screw cap. Like, there are so many great whiskeys that just happen to have a screw cap instead of a cork. And that one simple thing, you might look at a whiskey with a cork and automatically think, oh, that's just a better product, but it might not be. And again, it comes full circle back to this idea that better is subjective. And that's the whole point in this video. So I would encourage you, if you're new to whiskey, get out there and taste things, explore, be open-minded, try anything you can, everything you can, obviously within moderation, but don't let a price point fool you, don't let the packaging fool you, don't let what the label says fool you. Drink it, smell it, experience it. Whiskey is more than just taste, it's a full experience. How does it look? How does it feel? You know, do you like it? That is all that matters at the end of the day, because your dram is your dram. What's in your glass, if it's what you like to drink and it's the way you like to drink it, good for you, you're doing it right. If that's what makes you happy, that is all that matters, and nothing anybody else says should. I hope that's helpful. If you're new to whiskey and you're just kind of learning the ropes, those snobs can get you closed-minded right out the gate. And I know from experience, because when I was new to whiskey, that happened to me. I didn't touch blends. I didn't put ice or water in my drinks. It really tainted the way I approached whiskeys and stuff. And it wasn't until I kind of opened my mind to new ideas and tried things that I started to figure it out for myself. That's it from me. Thanks for tuning into Oak and Age. I really hope you found this video helpful or entertaining or, you know, worth your time. And if you did, it would really help me out if you'd hit like or subscribe to the channel. And please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Did I miss any important points? What else have you heard a snob say? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know. Get in touch. Follow me at Oak and Age on Instagram. And until next time, I'll catch you later.
Doop, doop, doop. Dooby doop doop bop doop bop doop dooby doop doop bop doop bop doop dooby doop.
Thanks for watching Oak and Age. Please hit like and subscribe. Cause if you don't, I will hunt you down and I'll gouge out both of your eyes.